Hey, welcome back to the Vinyl Narrative. Now today I've got 3 underrated indie rock gems that I genuinely think vinyl collectors and just indie fans in general should be paying a bit more attention to. Now these aren't necessarily deep cuts or anything like that, but I think these are albums that probably, for whatever reason, they never quite got the recognition that they deserved. Now, whether that's down to like timing or perception or even just getting lost in the sheer volume of amazing music from that era, I don't know. But I believe that these 3 picks are really interesting on vinyl, especially. And that's down to the mastering and the kind of pressing quality, as well as just how well the music translates to the vinyl format. So let's get into these 3 underrated gems. So first up we have Phoenix and their debut record, United. Now Phoenix are a band from, they're a French band from Versailles, France, and they were formed in the late 90s, and they kind of came up alongside a lot of artists that you would associate with the French touch movement, bands like Air and of course Daft Punk, but they are often kind of just lumped in and associated with like French touch sounds. But I think they're kind of one of the few bands that, they kind of came up in that same kind of sound, but they very much leaned harder into the indie rock sound than they did the electronic sound. They kind of experimented a little bit more with indie and guitar kind of music rather than the electronic production. Now this is their debut record, United, that was released in 2000, and it's just such an interesting moment in time because it's kind of at that intersection of the kind of late 90s indie guitar and disco revival movement, and of course the kind of very slick French touch production, which I think we kind of have to thank the late Philippe Zadar for. He contributed towards the mixing of this record, and then he kind of went on to be a long-term collaborator with Phoenix, and sadly he was taken way too early from us. Just a fantastic producer and mixer. But going back to this record, it didn't really kind of explode commercially on its first release, but I think over time it's a bit of a cult classic and a cult favourite, especially as I think Phoenix ended up going on to do much bigger things and have a lot of success with albums like Wolfgang Amadeus Phoenix, which is my favourite Phoenix record, and I'm sure it's a lot of other people's as well. But for me, this is where their sound was kind of at its most raw, but also its most effortless. You've got tracks like If I Ever Feel Better. I mean, what a song that is. It's probably my favourite Phoenix song. And it's essentially the blueprint for everything that Phoenix will go on to do, I think, and are still doing to this day. So you've got that kind of disco groove, you've got the kind of tight and angular and interlocked kind of guitar play throughout the track, and then you've kind of got Thomas Mars' vocals just kind of like glide across the track. It's just a really beautiful thing, and just such an understated, like almost in an understated way. I just absolutely love that song. It's probably my favourite Phoenix track of all time. But it's not the only great song on this album. I think all of them are cracking. Even Funky Square Dance and Definitive Breaks, which kind of close out the album, that is very much in Phoenix in kind of full experimentation mode, and also kind of like chopping up samples and things like that. It's really cool. I love this record. It's fantastic. I don't think it gets enough attention. You should certainly get it on vinyl. This is a reissue, but I don't think the originals are that expensive. I just don't think they sound as good, apparently. But this reissue, pressed to optimal, sounds really good. It's a European one. I believe it's from, I want to say 2015. It doesn't say on the back there, but a fantastic record. Everyone, if you're a Phoenix fan, you will love this album if you haven't yet checked it out. And if you just love indie guitar music with a bit of like French touch, electronic production, you'll love this too. So there we go, Phoenix, United. Okay, so next up, my second pick it's a bit of a time capsule, this one. This is Party Traumatic by Black Kids. And the Black Kids are a indie outfit from Florida, or Jacksonville, Florida to be specific. And they kind of came up in the like late 2000s. In that kind of indie pop, indie rock boom. So we're very much in the MySpace era, the blog hype era as well, and all of that. And over here in the UK, they had an absolutely monster hit. They just blew up off the back of it. It is, of course, I've got to get the titles very right. I'm Not Gonna Teach Your Boyfriend How to Dance With You, and it's track number 7 on this record. That song was everywhere, and I'm sure it was worldwide. It was on the radio, it was on TV adverts, it was in shops, and you'd see it on MTV2 as well. You just kind of couldn't escape it, nor that you would actually want to escape that track, because it is a beautiful and just a fantastic indie disco gem. I think the downside to that song is that it kind of overshadowed rather what the album was all about, and it's a very strong debut record, because I think Party Traumatic for me is like, it's just one of the most fun and creative indie pop rock records of that era. And that is no mean feat, because there was just some fantastic rock music released in the early 2000s. It's produced by Bernard Butler, of course, of Suede fame. And you can really hear that influence across this record from the instrumentation, at least. And he's taken these kind of quite raw and slightly chaotic compositions, because they're a big band. I think there's 6 of them in total. There's only, no, 5 of them, sorry, but I think they do have a 6th member that occasionally features. It's quite a big sound, quite chaotic, and he kind of really polished it up, I think, and kind of really pushed that pop sensibility onto them. Now, the downside of that is that there's a hell of a lot going on in some of these tracks. And sometimes it kind of feels like there's too much crammed into the arrangements. There's synths, there's guitars, there's bass, there's vocals, and a lot of that is just kind of competing with a lot of kind of modern production. But I will say it never gets boring listening to this record. I'm always in the mood to listen to it, especially in the summer. I just always associate this record with the summer. Now, if you only know that big single of I'm Not Gonna Teach Your Boyfriend How to Dance With You, I would say go out and check out, or at least stream, Hurricane Jane or Party Traumatic, the lead title track from this record. For me, those tracks start to reveal a bit of a, very heavily influenced, I would say, by Prince and the Revolution. It's very colourful and it's slightly offbeat, kind of funk pop energy with an indie sensibility. Now, from a vinyl collector's perspective, this one's got an interesting story, because it's been a very hard record to find, and that was up until November 2025, when this was finally reissued for Record Store Day. But I actually managed to grab it a few years before that. Now, this has been on my want list for years and years and years. Ever since I started collecting vinyl, I never saw it in the wild. There was hardly ever any that popped up on Discogs, and when they did, they were exceedingly expensive. But a few years ago, I was up late one night, or kind of in the early hours of the morning, because my daughter, bless her, when she was a baby, she was a terrible sleeper. So I would often go in there and sit with her, or cuddle her to sleep sort of thing. And I'd be scrolling on Discogs while she kind of nodded off. And I saw, not on Discogs, sorry, on eBay, I saw a listing that was exceedingly cheap. It was like a thrift store in America was selling this, a sealed copy of it, for essentially £35. And all the copies I'd seen up until then were in the hundreds. So bang, I went straight on it, bid on it, didn't think I was going to get it, I thought that was going to escape me, but no one else bid on it, miraculously. So I ended up getting a sealed mint copy of this for £35. What a bargain in comparison to what they went for. And what they go for today, actually. And when I got it, I'm very excited to play it. I opened it up, because I pretty much open up all my sealed records. I don't see the point in having them sealed and sitting on a shelf. It's not stock to me. It's something to enjoy and play. Unfortunately, this one has got a minor warp to it, but it does sound pretty good. Now, mastering wise, it is very much a typical kind of late 2000s digital workflow. It's a Pro Tools recording and a master essentially straight to vinyl. But, there is a little bit of compression. It doesn't sound amazing, but there is there's not a huge amount of separation between the instruments. But it doesn't sound bad. It's still a really engaging listen, and it kind of fits the kind of era, or the sound from that era anyway. It takes you straight back into that kind of indie sleaze, disco, indie pop disco kind of period, and all you need to bring is your skinny tie and your t-shirt, and you are set with this record. Fantastic album, back to front. Black Kids and Party Traumatic. Okay, my third and final pick for today, and this is one that I feel quite strongly about, actually. It is Los Campesinos with We Are Beautiful, We Are Doomed, WAD, I believe it's known as in some circles. Now, Los Campesinos, they are a band from Cardiff, Wales. They were formed in the mid-2000s, and they very quickly built up a very dedicated fan base. But like, they're one of those bands, I think, they have like this kind of cult following, but they never kind of made that bridge to breaking into like the absolute mainstream and kind of dominating radio play back in the day. But they were kind of a part of this kind of wave of UK indie bands, and you know, they very much kind of blended like indie twee pop with a bit of punk energy and just some really razor sharp and often quite emotional lyricism. And for that, I absolutely love it. Now, this came out in 2008, this album, We Are Beautiful, We Are Doomed. And that's the same year as their debut record, which is called Hold On Now Youngster. And it was actually recorded super quickly, almost like a reaction kind of thing to the kind of momentum that they were building up when they were touring. And they kind of actually changed their sound a little bit. They kind of moved slightly more away from that kind of twee pop sound into a bit more like kind of very punky and energetic indie rock. And because of that, it's a lot more raw and urgent and probably just more emotionally direct is what I would say about this record than their debut album is. But it didn't kind of get that kind of same level of push or attention, I find. But over time, it's kind of become a bit of a fan favourite. So a lot of people call it Wab Wad rather than the full title, because it's just quicker to say and it just sounds funny. Anyway, it's one of those records that I think just kind of captures the band's energy and that kind of era of music very, very, very perfectly. And this is a Vinyl Me Please edition, so it's a lovely kind of matte cover. I think this is reversible technically. It's a gatefold as well, so it's stunning representation of the record. You get a nice little booklet with it. And what else do we get? There is an Obi strip as well. I need to find that somewhere, I don't know. But anyway, I'll show you the best bit about this record, aside from the actual sound of it, is the pressing colour is really nice. It's just like kind of like, I don't know, purpley kind of maroon, almost marbled effect. It looks really super nice. There you go, I'll give you a view of the label. Yeah, love the look of this cover, and it sounds really good, especially for a GZ Media pressing. No problems with this at all. It's flat and centered, no pops and ticks, which is always a win when you've got a GZ Media pressing, because I find they're a bit inconsistent. This was part of the Vinyl Me Please Record of the Month in their rock category, and this is back before kind of things got a bit more chaotic, and God knows what's going on at VMP these days. Anyway, enough about that. There is it's just such a great and dynamic remaster from Cicely Bolston at Air Studios. And, she was one of the, I think that same year she won Mastering Engineer of the Year, actually. Not for this record specifically, but yeah, she's a great talent and one to watch in the mastering game. And lots of strong work in the vinyl reissue space as well. And in terms of the mastering that she's performed on here, it's kind of retaining that intensity and the energy that you would expect across this record without pushing into the red. And that's always a risk with albums like this. So you still get this really engaging listen, and it doesn't ever feel kind of like crushed or like pushing you to the limit or fatiguing on the ear, which could have easily happened with a record like this. And I think the colourway, again, it just adds to the experience of this fantastic record. If you've not heard Los Campesinos before, I would say the kind of like, there's two tracks I'd recommend, and luckily they're the first two tracks on this album to check out. Ways to Make It Through the Wall, which is the opener, absolutely fantastic, energetic opener. And then I can never say this right, Miserablia, there we go. The second track on the record. Those two should give you enough of a taster to know exactly what this band's all about. But I think it's just a criminally underrated record. They're a criminally underrated band as well. So fantastic music. You should definitely check them out if any of that sounds appealing to you. It's Los Campesinos with We Are Beautiful, We Are Doomed. So there we have it. That's 3 underrated albums that, in my opinion, are underrated indie rock albums from the early 2000s, and they're definitely worth revisiting, especially if you're into vinyl, because these all sound great on this format, I think. So if you've got any underrated picks, especially from that era, drop them down to the comments below. I'd love to hear from you, because I'm always looking to discover new or unfound music, I guess, that's kind of passed me by, I'd love to hear from you. And if you're into vinyl content like this, where we do reviews, reissue deep dives, and just deep dives into great music that you can get on vinyl, please give this video a like and subscribe so you don't miss a thing. Thank you so much for watching today, and the only thing I have to say until the next one is take care of yourselves and keep on spinning your records.